Hey, welcome back. Dead ball dancing. Big NFL day today, but there was actually some good basketball today as well.
Very
Got my buddy Justin here. How you doing, bud?
good, man. Good, man. Getting ready to fly out on our day off tomorrow, which also happens to be my birthday.
There
So
you go.
not looking too forward to that. But it's 9 degrees in Rhode Island right now. 9.
Oof. Happy
Yeah.
birthday.
Yeah. Thank you.
It was 65 in Phoenix today. It was beautiful outside. They had all the windows and stuff open. Gorgeous.
It was cold for me. I don't know about you, man. So I know 9 is going to be rough. That's for sure.
We have some movement in the top five. We have some serious movement in the top 25. It was an interesting week of basketball this week. There were some upsets. There were some games that went kind of the way we expected them to. But I mean, yeah, you see it on the screen here. A little bit of a shakeup.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll say some of the big dogs, Bama, getting to them in a second, dropping 2. That was I think they're running into a bit of a buzzsaw in Missouri. I think Missouri is a lot better than we had given them credit for. And then Tennessee, obviously Tennessee just doesn't look very good right now either, but I'm about to get into why. So do you want to kick us off or do you want me to kick us off?
Well, I was gonna let you talk about number 25, but you
I
don't
can
have
start
to.
there. I can start there. I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but I think at the beginning of the season, you and I both kind of had that feeling about Gonzaga, right? And they're only in our top 25 because somehow they're sticking around in Ken Palm. I don't think that's going to remain for very long. Losing to Oregon State and then getting clapped by Santa Clara is wild. That is a wild string of events for a team that was in the national championship in the last decade. So I'm happy to see them fall like they deserve. And in my opinion, and I think you might agree, there are teams that deserve that 25th spot over Gonzaga for sure.
Yeah,
So
I mean they're 14-6, and their losses are bad,
atrocious,
bad losses. So
atrocious. Yeah, but that's all I'm gonna say.
yeah, yeah, 14th in Ken Palm. They're hanging out. The peripherals, I guess, are still there, but
Yeah,
haven't been in our rankings in a while.
long time, long time. But yeah, kick us off, man. What caught your attention this week?
St. John's is going to be ranked by the AP this week.
They
That's
don't.
that's my that's my shot in the dark there. God only knows what the AP is actually going to do, but I think St. John's might finally crack the top 25. They've been receiving votes and just kind of been on the periphery. I think they'll be ranked this week. But I guess to start us off, I had a question for you.
Talk to me. Talk to me.
Have we seen the last ever unbeaten college basketball team?
I think we've had really good conversation about this kind of all throughout this year, right? And I think we're seeing the gap between these blue bloods and the Power Four, I guess it would be now, shrinking with that of the mid majors, right? I think NIL money is changing that. I think head coaches like Rick Pitino going to these mid majors like St. John's is changing that. So I think, yeah, I don't think that there's going to be an unbeaten team ever again, unless, of course, they get 10 out of 10 top 10 recruits, right? Like someone could pull that off, I suppose. But I just think there's too much money flying around for that to happen. What do you think?
Yeah, if you just take these super conferences and chop them in half,
Yeah.
I think at any given time the 10 could beat the 1. And I think as long as you can say that without smirking, without making a half joke about it,
Yeah.
the chances are so slim, because if you're one of these major programs, you're being encouraged to schedule tough out of conference. So even if you make it through that undefeated, now you got to play a top 25 team
Yep.
6 times just to
Yep.
get through your conference schedule.
Yep.
So it seems unlikely. I mean, it wasn't super common before.
Right. Right.
So I don't think we're going to see any more unbeaten teams unless something drastically changes in college basketball, and I don't see that happening either.
I don't see it either. And that's going to lead me right into kind of my first topic here. When you talk about like the 10 beating the 1 and kind of how deep these conferences are getting, right? And I think at the beginning of the season, we knew the SEC was going to be super deep and a very, very good conference. And I think there was 2 teams at the top of our mind that we thought would kind of be that lower class. It was Southern Carolina and Vanderbilt. And in Vanderbilt has completely flipped the script on their season, and now are tied just at the upper tier of the middle pack in the SEC at 3-2, including a win over Tennessee, which is their first top 10 win since 2023. Incredibly impressed with the way they play. They don't do any one thing right per se, or like outrageously good, but they're bought in across all aspects of the game. And it's kind of showing, to be able to hold Tennessee to 75 points is pretty incredible, right? Like that's a high flying offense. So, they're now top 40 in scoring offense. They're number 36 in the country at 82 points a game. They're shooting 50% or 47% from the field, was just outside the top 50. But they're number 5 in the country in turnover margin per game at +6 per game. They're forcing 16 turnovers, which is 12th best in the country, right? While only averaging 10, which is 29th best in the country. So you kind of see what I mean about like, okay, like their scoring offense is good, but they don't shoot that well. But then on the defensive side of the ball, they do some really good things. And they're very, very balanced. They have 9 guys averaging over 16 minutes a game. So when we talk about kind of the bottom end of these conferences getting better, I think Vanderbilt has exhibited that this season. And I don't think they're done getting some upsets. The SEC is very deep, and they got to play Florida. They have to play all these top Bama, right? And I mean, they're not going to win every single one of those games, but I think the gap is shrinking to your point about not seeing an unbeaten team ever again. And Vanderbilt really shocked me this week. They got some really good talent on that team.
So I guess, we've talked a lot about the big 3 conferences, the SEC, the Big 12, the Big 10. And for a while, we've had both the SEC and the Big 12 kind of as our de facto best conferences.
Agreed.
Where do you sit right now? Which of those 3 is the best conference top to bottom? Because for me, it's kind of close.
It's gotten a lot closer, I think, with the reemergence of Purdue and Michigan State. I wanted to take a moment to talk about Michigan State, but I don't want to steal your thunder yet. So I would say if I had to rank the conferences now, I still think the SEC is the best right now. Like they just have more good teams than the other 2 conferences have. I might put the Big 10 ahead of Big 12 right now. Like they have a lot of depth, and they have a lot of teams that are playing consistently. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, we can't sleep on the SEC. The team sitting at number 1 in our rankings is a team we haven't talked about at all, right? And for me, that speaks to the depth, right? We've been so busy talking about Tennessee and Florida and Texas and Bama, and it's like, oh yeah, the best team in the country, we've barely touched on because all they've done is win games.
Correct.
So for me, it's the SEC, and I think that gap is narrowing.
Yeah,
but they're still number 1. And until we're forced to have a conversation like who's the best team in the SEC, like we're just forgetting that up at the top is the number 1 team in the country. And like I feel like we're comparing 2 through 10 in the SEC to 1 through 5 in the Big 10, and it's like, yeah, it's close, and on neutral court, like the games are probably going to be close. We've seen a couple of those play out, but
right.
Yeah, like until it's an apples to apples conversation, like we can't even joke about having them in there. Like Auburn is still just winning games, and we've barely touched them.
Far and away the best team. I think they just had a really tough test against, was it Vanderbilt or was it Missouri? One of those 2 teams, they only won by like 2 points or something like that. So maybe we're seeing, some of the SEC teams trying them, but I think for the time being, the SEC is my favorite. And at the beginning of the season, we had this same conversation, and we said, man, the Big 10 looks weak. Purdue's not as good as they used to be. They're starting to show it again, thank God. Michigan State looked like crud, right, early on. They were winning games, but looked like crud. Michigan State's a top 10 team in the country. I know we have them at 10. I think if Michigan State played Texas A&M, Texas Tech, or Florida right now, they would win. That's how good I think they are. They've won 10 straight, 6-0 against Big 10, including wins against Ohio State and Penn State, and they beat UNC. When you think of Michigan State, you think about their defensive pedigree, right? But honestly, their offense is what has surprised me the most this year. They're top 10, number 8, in free throws made per game at 19. But they're 40th in the country in free throw attempts. So they're converting free throws at an extremely high clip, which means they're getting downhill, they're making you foul them, and they're getting to the line just like we know Big Ten play will be, right? Defensively, they're top 50 scoring defense at 67 points per game. They're 37th best in the country in field goal defense, only allowing 39% from the field, right? And they're 30th on three-point defense, only allowing 29% from three-point range. They seem very complete. At the beginning of the season, I thought that they were going to falter, which is why, we were saying the Big Ten was so weak. But, they're also very good at rebounding. They're top 50. They're top 16 in the country in rebounds per game at 41 rebounds per game. And they're 6th best in margin, averaging plus 10 rebound margin per game. When you think of Big Ten basketball, right, that's the team that you want to roll out there. And they're 15th in the country in defensive rebounds per game, which we know is crucial in terms of limiting second chance points to your opponents. The note that I had was they have a tough test coming up against Illinois, but with the consistency they show versus the inconsistency Illinois showed, I had them winning the game, and thankfully that came into fruition. But
the game was tight
game. But I'm starting to see the reemergence of some of the powerhouses in the Big Ten, which is why, to your point, I think I would put the Big Ten ahead of the Big 12 right now.
That is fair.
Yep.
A couple blue bloods here, new in our rankings. Kentucky and Arizona find their way back in. We've talked about how this back half will firm up a little bit now that we're in the conference play, and they're winning games. All they're doing is coming in and winning. I won't speak too much on Arizona because I see you have them on notice, but just interesting because you wouldn't. We've been down on Kentucky.
Yep.
For them to finally rejoin our rankings and come in at number 18.
Yeah.
I think is appropriate. If they continue winning games, they'll continue moving up the rankings. But I think we did a pretty good job stripping out the media bias from our rankings from the very beginning. And it's like, Kentucky's a team. Cool. Great. Show us.
Right. And that's one of the things that I think that you've done a really good job of, Rick. I always give you credit for is like you say, show me. Right. And I think, Kentucky, Arizona, Mississippi, right, Purdue, let's put them in there, have shown us that they belong in our top 25. And speaking quickly about one of the new rankings in our group here, number 19, Mississippi. After their loss to Memphis on 12-28, which is now, in my opinion, a bad loss, their next 4 games were win against a unbelievable Georgia team, Arkansas, LSU, and then they just drubbed Alabama by 10 and made them look silly. And you kind of look into their style of play, and why I want our viewers to kind of keep an eye on that 19 spot Mississippi is they're defensively monstrous. Like, this team is unbelievable. Georgia scored 51, Arkansas only scored 66, LSU scored 65, and Alabama scored 64. Alabama is the number 1 offense in the country, and they held them to 64 points. And you start to look into why, right? They're top 30 in three-point defense in the country. They're 29th, only allowing 29% from three-point range on 440 opponent attempts. That's unbelievable. Alabama is number 25 in the country in made threes per game, right? They're averaging 11 made threes per game. Really, really good. Mississippi held them to 5 threes the entire game. That's why they won the game, right? They're forcing 16 turnovers a game, 17th best in the country, right? And since they're only averaging 9 on their side of the ball, which is very impressive offensively, right? They're number 3 in the country in turnover margin per game at +7. They forced Alabama to commit 21 turnovers to 11 assists, while they themselves committed 12 assists to only 7 turnovers. This team is scary. When they figure it out on the offensive side of the ball, which their shooting is nothing to write home about, but they take really good care of the ball, don't turn it over. They're going to be a dangerous, dangerous team in the SEC because they're winning games purely on the defensive side of the ball because they're not even averaging that many points on offense. So when they figure out that side of the ball, that Mississippi team is going to be very, very scary. So just want our viewers to watch out that new number 19 spot there for us this week.
Yeah, 13th in the country in defensive rating, 3rd in the SEC. They're a force. They're a force.
They're scary. They're scary.
You have anything else high level on the top 25 you wanted to touch on before we get into some of these teams on notice?
No, not really. I think, the only other one that stood out, even despite the loss to West Virginia, which we know the best teams are going to lose sometimes, is, in my opinion, Iowa State still is probably the best team in the country. I have them behind Duke in my rankings right now. They're top 20 in scoring offense. They're top 15 in field goal percentage. And then on the defensive side of the ball, they're top 30 in forced turnovers per game, generating 22 points off. And they're top 20 in steals. They're averaging 10 steals a game. They kind of faltered in West Virginia in the second half, which is not what I thought would happen and not what they exhibited against Kansas, because they absolutely beat the crap out of a bad Kansas team. But I think, once they figure out the offensive side of the ball in the second half of games where they seem to have been a little bit shaky, I think they're going to be a force to be reckoned with. In my opinion, the 1 and 2 spots on our DVD top 25 right now could very well be a national championship preview, in my opinion. They played earlier this season. Great game. I think Auburn won by 2. But those two teams have looked the most complete despite Houston, except for Houston and Duke. So shout out to Iowa State. They look really bought in right now.
These teams on notice are interesting. It's an interesting selection here. You want to go first or second?
I'm going to go second. We'll go 1-1-1-1. Yep.
All right. So I'll start with Duke. I have finally
woken up.
Moved. I have them at 11. I have them at 11.
Yeah.
They feel inevitable. They are going to continue to win. And quite frankly, the ACC is trash.
Awful. So
it's a trash league. So, there's nothing left to stop them.
No.
Most casual fans are going to look at their schedule and see that they don't have another real game until they play Illinois in the ACC Big Ten Challenge. But
number 20,
Clemson.
Yeah.
They have a game against Clemson coming up here. Mm-hmm. I don't think Illinois is the last chance to stop Duke. I think Clemson is.
Yeah.
They match up better than Illinois is going to. And I just want Duke to be on notice. You are going to coast through most of the remainder of your schedule. However, that Clemson game might sneak up and get them here. Clemson's playing really, really good basketball.
Yeah.
And Duke's the better team. But
they are.
If they aren't ready for that Clemson game and they lose that one, I will have them back outside of my top 25 so quickly. I don't like having them in there. I don't like how many freshmen they play. I don't like it. But I did move them up to 11.
Yep.
Now, I will say that I have Clemson at 10. So for me, that's a prove it. That's a prove it. Okay. Whoever wins that game gets to stay in the top 10, and whoever loses that game is gone.
Yep.
So the ACC is just not special to me. There's just really not good basketball being played. The restructuring of the conferences, they really lost out on. They added crap football schools who are also crap basketball schools. It just the whole league feels disjointed and under talented. So that's my call out for Duke, and that's why they're on notice. Is you're the class of this conference, and you have to win every single game, otherwise I can't take you seriously. They'll win the conference, but if an ACC champ comes out and Duke's got 3 conference losses, it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter they won the ACC. That you'll be on a 2 line and I don't know, lose to a 15. So
it happened. Yeah, it happened. I mean, I spoke on Duke last week too, so I'm not going to beat the record to death or whatever the hell the saying is. But they just look scary, and especially playing at Cameron Indoor. I don't know where that Clemson game's being played, but if that Clemson Duke game is being played at Cameron Indoor, I personally don't see a world in which Clemson wins that game. They feel intimidating, if that makes sense. Their presence is just massive.
It's at the Coliseum. It's at Clemson.
It's at Clemson. Okay. So in that case, then, that game's going to be a little bit tighter. I never believed that crowds could make that much of a difference, but Cameron Indoor is wild, Rick. That's a wild place to play.
Call them the crazies for a reason.
Yeah, seriously. But yeah, I got Duke at. I actually slotted them at number 1. I feel they look most impressive, so I got Duke 1, Iowa State, and Auburn.
Yeah, Duke's number 1 on Ken Palm too.
Yeah, they just feel crazy. So I like your call out there. Prove it, right? Prove you're better than Clemson, which I think they have a chance to do. So I'm going to speak on Arizona. I badmouthed them. I called them dirty names. I didn't care that my wife went to school there. I didn't care that we lived in Arizona. And all they did was win 7 straight, including wins against West Virginia, TCU, Cincinnati, UCF, and they just beat Baylor. And now all of a sudden you look at the standings and they're third in the Big 12, which at the start of conference play, you and I would have been like, yeah, right. Every single statistic this team has improved on, but it's the defensive side of the ball that has impressed me the most. They're top 50 in the country in field goal defense, only allowing 39% from the field. That's good for 34th in the country. They're top 20 in the country in rebounding, number 17, 40 rebounds per game, and they're +8 margin, which is number 8 in the country, right? They do a phenomenal job of defending without fouling. Teams are only averaging 12 free throws a game against them. And we know in a physical Big 12 conference where Houston's going to come try to smash you in the mouth, Iowa State's going to come try to smash in the mouth, even Baylor, right? They're defending without fouling. And that to me is impressive. They only allowed 67 points to Cincy, 56 to West Virginia, 70 to Baylor, and they just lost to Texas Tech, so I'm going to give them a pass there. But they only allowed 70 points to Texas Tech, which is a pretty prolific offense, right? What I really like they've improved on is the beginning of the season, and this is why I'm having them on notice because I don't want them to fall back in their old ways, right, is they gave the ball to Caleb Love. He would ISO for 30 seconds out of the 35-second shot clock, and he would jack up a step-back three-pointer from 45 feet. All of a sudden, they're top 25 in the country in assists at 17 assists per game. They're limiting turnovers. They're 44th in the country in assist to turnover margin, which is awesome. They're I think they're a 1.5 turnover margin. And now all of a sudden, as a team, beginning of the season, the team shooting average was 41%. They're now all the way up to 48% from the field, which is 44th best in the country. They're top 42 in free throw attempts per game, and they're top 40 in the country in free throw makes per game at over 17 a game. They have an easy 2-game stretch coming up. They got Oklahoma State and Colorado, right? But then they got the big boy, Iowa State, right after that. So I think they have a chance to run 2 straight against pretty weak Oklahoma State and Colorado team. And if they keep playing the way that they're playing right now and show that they've improved thus far in the Big 12 conference, they're going to test Iowa State. I don't think they're beating Iowa State. Iowa State looks too complete, but what a turnaround by Arizona. I have them at my 22 spot, and if they keep winning, I can see them getting back into my top 15. Show me. You have a big chance coming up. Show me, right? So what a turnaround by them.
Yeah, Ken Palm's got them at 16. They've looked sharp.
Yeah. I don't think that you have them back in yours yet. Yeah,
I do not. Yeah,
that's fair. That's fair.
All right. So
premature.
This one, I hate this. I hate talking about my teams. This is like the Babadook, man. Like you think you're safe, and you just feel it. You feel something behind you, and you turn around, and it's right there.
Yep.
That's friggin' Wisconsin. Okay. This team lost back to back.
Yep.
Michigan, Marquette, Illinois. I said I was done.
I know.
I remember. Season. I'm over it. All I've done is win every single game since then. They crushed Iowa. Wisconsin. If you've ever watched a Wisconsin basketball game, let me just tell you, they scored in triple digits.
They've done that a couple times this season.
It's mind-boggling. I don't understand. Crazy. So I'm looking at this. I'm trying to figure out, like, because I know the feeling, right? I'm a Wisconsin guy. I know what's happening, but I actually looked at the stats to figure out, because it doesn't make any sense.
Yep.
There are 364 teams in D1 basketball. On aggregate, the Badgers have forced their opponents in fouls committed to the tune of being 334th in basketball. all they do is draw fouls. All they do is draw fouls. And then you know what? The Badgers are the number 1 team in the country in free throw shooting percentage.
Yep.
So all they have to do is play Big Ten defense and smother you to death and hold you to 60 points, and they're going to win by 15 when you start fouling at the end of the damn game because they're in the bonus 5 minutes into the second half.
Yep.
So those numbers actually did a pretty good job articulating what I feel when I watch Wisconsin, which is that I don't want to watch this game. It's slow, it's boring, it's painful because it's either the shittiest win you've ever seen or a heart-crushing loss as a fan.
Right.
So like I hate watching the Badgers play, but at least now I have a definitive metric that tells me why. They don't do anything well. Their defense isn't great. Their offense isn't great. They're outside the top 150 in shooting.
Right, exactly.
But they're like the best team in the country at drawing fouls and the best team in the country at making foul shots. And it's just, they're going to be there. They're going to be right there. And we've talked about this several times, too many times this season. So I've got Wisconsin up to 22 in my rankings, and they're ranked. And I hate it. But they're going to be there, and we know they're going to be there, and they're going to beat a Michigan State team in the Big Ten championship, and they'll get like a 3 line, and then they'll go on a run where they beat a team they shouldn't. They'll beat like a hot 14, and then they'll get absolutely shit canned by some team that has no business being in the tournament. So I know I got the whole path. I got the whole path down. But what I will say is that the free throw thing is sustainable. That's Wisconsin basketball. It's how they're coached. They can do that, and they'll continue doing that. So don't bet Wisconsin games unless you're taking Wisconsin minus the points, because if there's 3 minutes left in the game and they're within 10, they're going to cover. They're going to cover whatever the number is. It's just going to happen.
And, I was with you on everything you described in the path until you said Michigan State, Wisconsin, Big Ten championship, because we obviously know that that's not happening. It'd be Purdue, Michigan State in.
Who do you think the Badgers beat in the semifinal?
When?
No, this year. They'll go through Purdue to get to Michigan State.
Dad, if you're watching, obviously he's full of crap, so we're just going to let that one slide, and we're going to move. No, I'm kidding. So the reason why they lost the back-to-back games, and the only thing that scares me about Wisconsin is you're right in the fact that they're aggressive in drawing fouls. They are the best free throw shooting team in the nation. The reason why they lost to Michigan, Marquette, and Illinois is because those 3 teams defended without foul. Wisconsin still got their free throw attempts. They still shot a very high clip when they got to the line. But what I'm worried about is you get against these buzzsaws like a Michigan State, like an Iowa State, like an Auburn, that are very, very adept at defending without fouling. And that, in my opinion, is what scares me about Wisconsin. If they can make that work, they can make it work. I don't have them in yet. I'm just waiting until they beat Michigan State or Purdue. And then they're squarely in my top 18, I want to say. So I like the fact that you put them on notice. I don't know what their next game is, but it should be a really, really good one.
They play UCLA on Tuesday.
Might be a tough test. You never know. UCLA sucks, but
they stayed out west. They had USC yesterday, so they just stayed in California.
Smart, yeah, because you're paying all that money to go to school. My last team that I'm putting on notice is Florida. The inconsistency that they showed in the last 3 games is astonishing. It felt like that loss to Missouri was coming. You beat the ever-loving hell out of Tennessee by 30. Then Arkansas, you only won by 8. And then Missouri comes to town, and in my opinion, Missouri is a top 4 team in the SEC right now. I know it was only a 1-point win, but Missouri made them look like amateurs in the first half. And then you turn around and beat Texas by 24. I'm going to get into their stats in a moment. Their schedule coming up is Georgia on the 25th, Tennessee again on the 1st, Vanderbilt on the 4th, and then Auburn on the 8th. That is a tough 4-game stretch, because if the worst team that you're going against is Vanderbilt that we just talked about earlier, you better be up and ready for that game, because that team will come and punch you in the mouth. Yeah. Their offensive side of the ball has completely crapped the bed. Since the start of SEC play, Rick, they went from 89 point per game average to 85 point per game average. It's not like their non-conference schedule was easy. They were playing tough teams, right? But they've just looked like just completely misaligned on the offensive side of the ball. It looks like ISO ball has kind of taken over. Prior to SEC play, they were the third best offense in the country. Since then, they have dropped all the way down to the 11th spot, which is a pretty drastic drop because SEC play hasn't been going on for that long, right? They've dropped outside the top 50 in field goal percentage, dropping to 46% from the field. They've dropped outside the top 50 in three-point percentage, down to 33% from three-point range. They are 91st in the country in assists. They're only averaging 15 assists per game. The ball is getting stuck. You talked about it earlier. They give it to Clayton. He pulls up from 40 feet. It might go in 40% of the time, but there's just not enough movement on the offensive side of the ball. The scheme, it's just not working. The defensive side of the ball still looks really good. They're number 6 in the country in field goal defense at allowing 37% from the field. So they're sticking around because of that defensive pedigree. But I'm putting them on notice because that 4-game stretch is going to be brutal. And if they don't figure out how to fix their stagnant, lackadaisical offensive effort, they might go 1-3 in that stretch. Because I would say Auburn's going to beat them, right? I think Tennessee is going to come with a vengeance against them. You could easily drop one against Georgia or Vanderbilt. So I think they really need to tidy up. So I'm very concerned about them moving forward. I have them on a downward trend, and I have them at number 14, which is, I think I had them at 7 last week. So I dropped them 7 spots because of the way they've been playing. So look out.
Yeah. I'm concerned. I'm just concerned because they looked so good.
They looked amazing.
They passed the eye test. Like, even when they weren't playing solid, yeah, this team can just turn it on at any moment. And I think some of that's gone. It feels like it's just kind of slipped away from them. So,
yeah.
All right, game of the week time.
Let's do it, man. This is going to be a good one. I like that we went with, mid-major, top-end mid-major. This
Justin threw me a bone. I wanted to do a weird one.
It's not weird. Look at the logos, man.
So, we've got St. John's and Xavier on the 22nd.
Oh, yeah.
St. John's is our number 13 team. Xavier unranked. But talk to me about Xavier.
Impressive. Before their recent trend, I would have had St. John's by literally 1 million points. St. John's is 5th in both of our rankings, and the only reason they're 13 is because of KenPom. Right. They played St. John's tough the first time. Right. They only lost by 6. And then they rattled off 2 straight wins against Villanova and Marquette, which Villanova was in our top 25. And Marquette, I believe, bear with me, is number 12. And they looked very sharp against them. Now, you spoke about Wisconsin, right? And you spoke about the fact that their scheme heavily relies on drawing fouls and getting to the free throw line where they're very, very good. Xavier's entire existence is based on literally just going one direction. They don't even try to ISO you or anything. They just run straight at you, and they go straight to the basket, and they're forcing teams to foul them at a very high clip. They're outside the top 50 in free throw attempts, but they're 27th in the country in makes at 18 makes a game, and they're 20th in the country in percent at 78% from the line. They share the ball very well. The ball never gets stuck. They're averaging 17 assists per game, which is 39th best in the country, to only 11 turnovers per game, which is the 50th best assist to turnover ratio in the country. So their scheme is actually very similar to Wisconsin, which I'm very interested in seeing how their strengths also go up against the strengths of St. John. But before I talk about St. John's, I don't know if you want to give your first note out about Xavier.
Yeah, so X for me.
No, read the comment. Read the comment in there.
Oh, X gonna give it to you.
Yeah.
X gonna give it to you. X gonna deliver to you.
Yeah, they might.
RIP DMX, one of the greatest East Coast rappers of all time. 6th place in their conference for Xavier. They lost to St. John's recently. It was less than 2 weeks ago, but they've been on a roll. 21st in free throw shooting. they can slow the game down. And I think that might be the only opportunity against the St. John's team is to slow the game down and take your possessions and just play your game. If they can control their possessions and hit their free throws, I think there's a path. St. John's is better.
Yeah.
St. John's is better. I mean, they should win this game by double digits. So I think if Xavier can keep it closer than that, I think that's a moral victory, which, you know, in the standings and for the March Madness bracket means absolutely nothing. But you know, in a kind of suspect all of a sudden Big East, I think a game like that could be a turning point for Xavier the rest of the way. So I think that's what I'm looking for them is just play your game and be there at the end.
They look sharp. You know, they have a chance to end the season, you know, top 3 in the Big East, I would say. But what I'm interested in is seeing if their strengths, what we just discussed, can hold up against the strengths of St. John's, which happens to be exactly what Xavier is good at. So we just said Xavier takes very good care of the basketball, you know, 39th in the country in assists, very good. St. John's forces 16 turnovers a game, which is 20th in the country, including 10 steals, which is 17th in the country, and they generate 19 points off turnovers a game. Which one's going to hold out? Is it going to be the taking care of the ball by Xavier, or is it going to be St. John's smothering defense? Right, they got a top 50 scoring defense, only allowing 66 points per game. Where Xavier, pretty good offensive team, averaging 78 points a game. What's going to happen? Right. I think the thing that is concerning to me about Xavier St. John's matchup is we just said they're 20th in the country in free throw percentage and 27th in the country in makes, Xavier. St. John's is only allowing 10 free throw attempts a game. That is unbelievable defense. The fact that you can defend that well without fouling, top 50 scoring defense in the country, is wild. And I think the fact that St. John's, I'm not even going to talk about their offense, is so complete on the defensive side of the ball. They're too good at too many things on defense to where even if Xavier gets to the line, they might get to the line 20 times, but St. John's might turn them over 21 and get 30 points off. So I think I'm leaning, even though I'm very proud of Xavier and the trend they have, I'm leaning St. John's. I think it's going to be closer than the game that they played 2 weeks ago. I got St. John's by 4 to 6 points.
Yeah, computer's got 7.5.
Yep.
So yeah, St. John's defense, man, number 5 defensive rating, number 9 defense in the country right now. Like I said, there's a path, but I think the focus here is more St. John's, right?
Yeah.
And I want to see what they can do on offense, right? Because Marquette's vulnerable. You know, Marquette, we've seen some chinks in the armor, and I mean, this Big East, UConn's still lurking. They're going to be around, but at the end of the day, I think that St. John's defense puts them in a position where it's kind of theirs for the taking.
Yeah.
So as long as they can exercise their offense against some of these lesser opponents like Xavier, you know, I think building on successes there is what's going to take them to the end in the Big East. And I'd like to see somebody that's not UConn pick this up. Marquette, I have a special place in my heart full of hatred for, just because of their proximity to Wisconsin. So yeah, give me not UConn, not Marquette. So if St. John's wants to step up and run away with this, I wouldn't be too upset, but that's what I'm going to be watching in this game is show me that offense. And then for Xavier, how well can you play your version of basketball against an elite level defense? So those are the two things I'm kind of keeping an eye out for.
So you have St. John's.
Yeah, St. John's probably double digits.
You think so? Okay. And you point out the Big East standings and just something to keep an eye on. St. John's, they've won 5 straight. They're number 1. Marquette, just to your point, looks very vulnerable. They just lost 1. Creighton all of a sudden is on a 3-game win streak. UConn's in 4th place. They just lost to Creighton. Villanova, I think they're worse than what they're showing. But Xavier is like dead middle, and they scare me because all of the teams that we just mentioned, Marquette, UConn, Villanova, are kind of on that downward trend, and Xavier's kind of at that upward trend. And conceivably, I can see the 1, 2, 3 spots in the Big East be St. John's, Creighton, and Xavier by the end of the year. So really interesting to see how this game plays into that.
And don't forget, viewers, the Big East is real basketball conference. Like even the bad teams in this conference, like I don't know, you probably remember a time when Seton Hall was good because it hasn't been that long. So, the Big East is for real. Down year kind of ish. The top is way better than the bottom, but I mean, even DePaul, Butler's been around, Pravi's always around. Like this is a real conference. So
yeah, agreed.
Watch out. You can't sleep on them. You can't. So St. John's needs to show up and play.
Yep.
But they should win this game
pretty handily. But good game of the week and great logos. Look at the Musketeer. He looks awesome. Excellent job, Rick, as always.
It's sharp stuff. Cool matchups, man.
Yeah,
I like that. I like the colors.
Absolutely.
All right. Did you have anything else you wanted to touch on for what is this, week 12? Week 12, I believe.
March is around the corner, man. No, nothing. Look out for the Big Ten. I would say look out for the Big Ten. I think they're gonna end of the year. We're gonna be talking about SEC, Big Ten being the two best conferences in basketball. You can't forget about Houston and Iowa State, but holistically, look out for the Big Ten. That's a deep conference.
Yeah. Well, that's it, guys. I think we have normal next week.
We do. Chain link game of the week.
Yeah, game of the week will be up. We could do it real quick. Who wins the national championship tomorrow?
Notre Dame.
That's what I'm thinking too. That's what I'm hoping. All you.
No. I want Iowa. I want Ohio State.
Ew.
My family's from Ohio, bro. My dad's watching.
Well, Ohio's a great place to be from.
Well, he went to Miami of Ohio, so I don't even think he likes Ohio State either. Put it in the comments. What do you even like Ohio State, or are we rooting for Notre Dame? No, we hate Notre Dame. Yeah, we're rooting for Ohio State.
See, you can't even remember who his in-state rivals are.
Yeah, I got Ohio. I want Ohio State to win. I think Notre Dame.
It's 8.5, so I'll be taking those points and then just hoping that the Buckeyes lose outright because I'm a hater.
Yes, you are.
I'm a hater. I'm doing better. 2025 was going to be less hate, and we're doing a good job.
Yeah, absolutely. Download Chainlink, please, and let us know in the comments who's winning, St. John's or Xavier. Put it in the comments right now.
This might be the widest spread on a game of the week that we've had.
This one
might be the most.
St. John's Xavier?
Yeah, this might be the most lopsided matchup when it's all said and done. They've all been pretty tight.
They have. They've been really good games, but again, I think it's going to be closer than what the spread has. I'm telling you.
Yeah. It'll be up there. Chainlink.st. If you are not playing, there's literally no reason not to. It is free to play. Beautiful.
Yep. It'll have a nice outline on it. And if you don't download it, put it in the comments, please. I've been asking you guys for 12 weeks now, 13, including superlatives, to put your picks in the comments. Put them in the comments.
I think the problem is that by this time in the show, we have just lost the audience.
No, we still got viewers. I'm looking at it right now.
Oh, no, I just meant are they actually paying attention?
Oh, fair.
We appreciate all of our viewers, whether you're watching or not.
Thanks, guys.
All right. Dead ball dancing. Have a great week. We'll see you Monday, Sunday. It'll be on the channel. Like, comment, subscribe, and click the notify button. And then you'll know as soon as it's scheduled, you'll get an email. You get a push notification.
Perfect.
Only one way to do it, guys.
Perfect.
Appreciate y'all. Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys. You guys have a great week. Peace.
Dead ball dancing, baby.